Howdy, strangers. Welcome to another edition of Talking to Strangers. I am the Alchemystic, your host, but you can call me B. I'm really excited for this guest today. He's somebody that is has the passion that I have of professional wrestling. Somebody that I've known through the years, but never really got to know. Someone I've always vibed with. My guest today is the incomparable Richie Slade.
Thank you for having me, Sasha. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And like I said, you're somebody I've vibed with through the years at shows. Every time we're at a show together, we always seem to have great conversations. We had a great match together that I still cherish. And so I see you as somebody that's kind of on the same wavelength as me. We're both not just into wrestling, but the entertainment industry and all these different facets of art that we're pursuing. So I wanted to get you on to kind of get a deeper dive into you, who Richie Slade is, and what your story is. And that's coincidentally, it's the first question I usually ask all my guests, and it's on my sign. What's your story, Richie?
Well, I am a artist. That's what I consider myself, at least. I've come a long way to be where I'm at today, and I would like to inspire. I would like to inspire others that have a dream and to make something of themselves. And basically, if someone were to look at my uh, upbringing in life and the things that I went through all the way to be here. I'm sure we all have our own journeys. I would like to, if that was a book, it would be like, you know, uh, the road to making dreams come true, I guess you could say, because I mean, you may not be able to make them all come true, but at least as long as you try to strive to it, I feel like at least my journey in life is it's taught me a few things is you can still be proud of yourself. You can still die and and be happy about the accomplishments that you've done. And because quitting and giving up is where you're going to end up. That's not where you want to end up being. And as long as you keep fighting, and again, I'll go further into more into that. But that's what's brought me here today, and I'm happy to be here, man.
So let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. You obviously are wearing your mask, right? And if people have followed your work through the years, you're always kind of like the pretty boy, right? That was like your gimmick. Your character was this pretty boy, right? And you're as somebody who thinks of themselves as very attractive, you're like I would say intimidatingly attractive, right? Like you're a very good looking dude, and it's like kind of was your gimmick for all these years to be kind of like, oh, the pretty boy, and now you're exploring this different character. It was kind of a darker side, somebody that's almost like Vega from Street Fighter, right? You have the mask on, protect your pretty face, or I've been watching your promos for this character, and they're very cinematic. They're very it's like a movie, right? So it's we were kind of talking the pre-talk about you're creating this cinematic experience with this character. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. What made you kind of pivot and go in this direction with your character, and what's inspiring you to do this different version of yourself?
Well, this past January, I ended up having a little accident, and if it, I would have said it was something bad, but it was almost a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to kind of shift my thoughts in a new direction. Because my entire life, basically, you always hear it. Good-looking people get things easy, and I don't want to use my appearance as a way to gain notoriety or anything like that. Plus, as I get older, it's harder to maintain. And I almost want to say what mask because this is now my new face. But it's one of those. It was one of those chances in life to jump into an opportunity of doing something that I want to do, and I'd be able to use all the skills that I've gained over the years, being a huge movie fanatic. I grew up on movies and that was my escape from reality. The same with wrestling was. Um, so initially, of course, I wanted to be an actor before I became a wrestler, but I didn't have the guts to do it. And wrestling was kind of the push that I needed to kind of gain the confidence to pursue it. And I'd say right now I'm kind of doing the best of both worlds. And it's if I can continue this route, it would be a nice little send off for myself. Because of course I don't plan on doing this forever. Um, Considering I was even going to make this past year my last year of wrestling, so this kind of inspires me just to go a little bit longer and possibly inspire more people along the way, if that's possible.
Yeah, yeah. That message that you know have talking about like pursuing your dreams, right? Like
Mm,
life throws these obstacles in front of us, and like everything that we want's on the other side of fear and these obstacles. And so I personally, on my personal journey, I've had to deal with very similar things of like, especially with wrestling, it's a young man's game, and as we're getting older, and maybe like you were in this character for a long time, and at some point with my own journey, I felt stagnant in my own character, and like I kind of lost my love for it in a lot of ways. So to see artistically, it's easy to get caught in a rut, especially when you're in a character driven, you know, type of storytelling style of wrestling. It could be, it could, you could get into a place of stagnation as an artist, and that goes probably for any medium, right? So that's something that really
absolutely.
speaks to me. And this, the concept of chasing your dreams, right? Like a lot of people, everybody has a dream in their heart. Everybody has a dream that kind of this vision of what they want to do. And I feel like a lot of people kind of stuff it away because of the responsibilities of life. Like, and so to, you know, connect to you, that kind of resonates with this, like this battle within of like trying to do, kind of accommodate the dream, but also living at the same time. You know, it's you got to find this balance within to really chase your dreams.
Abs- Absolutely. Life is it can drown you. You know, the things that we're brought into in this world where, we have to make ends meet. We have to keep a roof over our head. We have to do the things that we got to do to get by. But at the same time, we have to balance that out with trying to keep a dream and a goal and all these other things. And for myself, I'm a bit of a lunatic because my goal isn't, or I guess my dream isn't just for one particular thing. It's multiple things. And my plate is so full. And some people think I'm crazy because there's no time to rest. But I like it like that. I like the chaos. I like the insanity all behind it because I can, you know, I I see it like this. I would rather be the guy that's good at doing 100 different things than to be the one guy that does one thing and suck at it. And I meet way too many people like that in this world where they just go about in life having one task and they can't even do that one task. And that tells me right there the guy is uninspired. Maybe perhaps he needs to talk to the right person or do the right thing. But I, you know, I would hope that they would draw something from certain things that I've done and I've said. I'm the type of person is I'm impatient too. I don't like waiting around for others, and it's my flaw. But at the same time, it's a blessing as well. So, when it came down to wrestling, I needed gear to be made, and I went through that route for a period of time for and I try to tell this to young students coming into wrestling too, is that, when you come in, it's okay for the first few years to, you get your stuff from whatever website, you go to a designer and you tell them what you want. But if you can learn how to sew and if you could learn how to use a sewing machine, go and find your own stuff and be creative. Everything that I've performed in the last 7 years, I've made myself. I don't wait around for anybody else. I do it for myself. Uh, I'd like to say I'm the jack of all trades, but the master of none part is not true because I'm the master of all.
Yeah, I'm in this. I'm in the same boat, brother. I have all these different like pursuits and facets of my life. Like I'm
Yeah.
artist. You know, I'm painting. I'm doing the podcast. I'm still doing the wrestling stuff. Training people.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch, go to my social media. Like I try to have this eclectic mix of things, and to also try to inspire as well, because I feel like a lot of people are in this rut of society of like, and they kind of like given up their spark. right? And like
Absolutely.
part of this podcast is about connecting to people, and like yourself, I don't need to and not ignite your spark, but there's other people like that I've come across in this journey of making this podcast who think they're just a regular Joe, think that their life isn't meaningful, think that they're just they don't have a story to tell. Like, oh,
Mhm.
I like one of the things I've come across when getting guests is like, oh, my life's not interesting, right? And
Right.
but then I get them on the podcast and I get them talking about their life and telling their story, and it's just like you see the fucking fire come on, like,
Yeah,
wait, this life is like this meaningful experience, and I have this crazy story to tell. Like everyone's got this crazy fucking wild story that of their
absolutely.
life, you know? And so yeah, man, you and I vibe in that like we were pursuing all these different things. I have a couple screenplays out there. That I'm trying, so I'm like I'm always doing something. I'm making a piece of art. I'm you know I'm making a
And I guarantee
podcast.
you
And
this. Everyone looking from the outside in and they look at what you do and they think this guy's he's freaking
he's
nuts. There's
crazy.
no way.
Hmm.
He's got to be he's got to be coked up to the gills or something to even be able to, because when does he have time to sleep? I
Hmm.
get that often. So when you have time to sleep, not that much, but that's just it though. When you're passionate about something and you really want to do something, don't let nobody tell you you can't do it. You know, no matter how old you are. This going to people that are, you know, saying, hey, you know, I haven't done anything since, you know, and or here I am, I'm in my 40s, or here I am, I'm in my 30s. It's already passed. No, it's never too late. Never too late. And it's all about getting that connection too, finding the other people that inspire you in the same way. And it's hard. It is hard to find that in life. You know, one of the things that I come across frequently is, especially on film projects and whatnot, stuff that I do myself, producing myself, is finding people that have the same passion, who, you know, who want to be available at certain times to shoot certain things. And I get it, we all have our own lives, but it's difficult. It's difficult to connect to others who have the same imagination, the same fire that you do. And it's just you gotta keep knocking. It's that door, you know what I mean? You got to keep knocking at that door until somebody answers. Eventually, someone will. You just got to keep searching. That's all.
And I feel like you kind of got to be delusional with it. Like I have a vision board, right? Where I've written
Mm-hmm.
like all these things that I want to do. And like I personally I had like a near death experience that kind of ignited this new passion and new fire within me that to kind of go after all these things that I had kind of let kind of slide and you know like these visions. I've always had this vision in my mind of what I want to do and what I'm supposed to do. And I feel like I was been given all these gifts and I kind of just wasted them for the like the first 35 years of my life, right? And then I had this experience and it just kind of clicked. And so it was just like, all right, I'm gonna write screenplays, I'm gonna make art, I'm gonna do all these things, and then I'm gonna use that spark in me to try to get that touch other people too. That's just what the podcast is about. Is like I had this conversation at a party last night. A guy I connected to, I was telling him about the podcast. It's like everyone's got this like God particle in them, right? Like it's like that we have this creator inside of us, and I just want to touch that in people and let them know it's okay to pursue that. It's okay to find that thing inside of you that's screaming at you. You know that we just kind of stuff it away, like oh, I'll pursue it later, and then you do a job for 65 years and you retire and you're just like you don't have time to do anything anymore and you're tired and you don't want to fucking do shit and it's life
Yeah.
you've given up on life, right? And I never wanted to be that person. I always wanted to pursue the things and follow my heart, which is what led me to wrestling. Is like I was always something that I loved, and when I did it, it was the hardest thing I ever did, and it just like just grabbed me. So let's talk about wrestling, man. Like what's you and I obviously both have this passion for it, and a lot of people don't really understand it as an art form or look down on it or whatever. But like, what is it that inspired you to get into wrestling?
Uh so going way back, I was a fan immediately. I started watching wrestling when I was about 9 years old. um and my parents, like, we moved a lot, so I didn't have like a normal upbringing of staying in school and keeping friends for very long periods. My dad lived by the motto is like, you go where the money goes. So when it came to moving, it was a regular part of life. I knew within a matter of 3 to 6 months, to even at most places, if I was lucky, I was there for a year. um and yeah, so basically it's television ended up being my best friend, you know, watching TV, watching movies, and you know, watching wrestling, getting caught up in the world and the storytelling, you know, because my life wasn't you know, like especially during the teenage years, you want to you want to go out, you want to make friends, you want to have a girlfriend. You start to feel these weird things where you're like, you just want to live, and you're watching it on television too. It could be a little, um, it could be a little sad and a little challenging too when you don't have that life, but yet you see it on television. You think this is how it's supposed to be in the real world. You're watching these love stories, and you're like, and I'm sure everybody goes through that, at some point or another, where you say, I wish I had that. And basically, I obsessed with it, man. I had that goal in the back of my head. It was like I wanted to be an actor first because I love movies, for one, and then I said, somewhere in there, maybe I could dabble in a little bit of wrestling along the way and see what would happen. Um, an extreme long story short, basically around the age of 17, I ended up spending a lot of time being homeless, about for 7 or 8 months with me and my brother out in Vegas. And we pretty much, it was a situation. Long story short, my parents got in trouble, and we really didn't have no place to go. It was one of those where they were going to put us into a foster home. Instead, temporarily, they sent us to a shelter for usually runaways. And me and my brother, being very sheltered, didn't have no clue what the hell was going on. All we knew was movies and wrestling. So if we try to relate to somebody, that was literally the talk that we had. And yeah, so I ended up spending about, I would say, 7 months. I ended up being sent out to Mississippi at the time, where my grandmother was. Spent a long time there, and that didn't work out. That was, that was very traumatic experience I experienced over there, not having my mom or my dad in my life, and having, you're with family that you don't normally spend time with. You don't really know. The last time I was around them, I was like 7 years old, and what you imagine in your mind goes off a little different. And plus, my dad's Persian, and them being, my mom's side being Southern, a lot of them were pretty racist. So then, and that's another topic of itself. But me and my brother suffered a lot of abuse from that, and then it was a choice whether we stuck around there until my parents got back into my life, or me and my brother would just go to Vegas and chance it all, where my dad was being held. And we eventually we got a Greyhound. We ended up pretty much being homeless. We chose that lifestyle. We were supposed to meet with someone that was a friend, but they never showed up. So we would, get by sleeping in casinos. We would go to the shelters until they would, decide to cycle us out and rotate. And then, of course, the threat became, adopting us out to different families, putting us into that. And me being the older brother, I refused that, and my birthday was coming up shortly. So I was like, I just got to get by. I just got to get by. And I ended up walking into a thrift store called Savers, near Fremont, actually. And I begged this guy. I said, I guess like I proud, I, I was, I prided myself into looking good. Like I try to still keep up, even though I was homeless. I didn't have a regular routine shower and stuff like that. I had like maybe two sets of, things of clothing, and between me and my brother, like we had a couple of things that we could switch in and switch out. But it's not, you don't have you don't have the luxury of going and washing and getting yourself cleaned up and prepared for a job interview. So I just went in and I said, I'm tired of being like this. So I went into a thrift store, and I remember this guy's name was Travis, and he was the manager there at the time. And I said, hey, and I know this sounds like it's going somewhere, but it's going to come right back around to
No, you're
wrestling.
good, man. Tell your
So
story,
bear
brother.
with me.
This is fast. I did not know this about you, so it's really
Yeah,
fascinating to kind of get a little bit deeper into your story, because this is the kind of stuff that I want with the podcast. It's like you've obviously been to the lowest lows, and you didn't let it get you down, and it actually inspired you to kind of get to where you're going now and where you're at now. It forged you into the person you are now. So yeah, keep going, man.
absolutely, absolutely. So I begged the guy, and I said, hey, it's me and my brother. We're homeless, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to work right now. I will get on the floor right now, start sweeping, whatever you need, whatever you need. Of course, I scanned the ground and everything. I saw there was few ladies working in the front, putting, clothes back up on the hanger. And I saw a couple of homeless people too that I recognized from the shelter. So I found that kind of funny. Um, shopping around, but what they were really doing was they were swapping out clothes. They would go in the back, they would hide, swap out the clothes real quick, and hide their put their old clothes in there. So certain aisles that you would walk into, you'd find the area would stink like crap, pretty much. And and of course, that was a hint right there. I knew right off the bat. Okay, somebody put their clothes. But anyways, without dragging on, the guy said, "Okay, all right, get to work." It was just like that. I was like, well, wait a minute, what? And that was like literally the first job experience I had. I didn't know what to do. I was like, all right, tell me what to do. He's like, grab a broom and start sweeping. And I started immediately doing that. Um, until he told me whenever to go home, and he started training me in the registers, training me in other stuff. And of course, me being an inexperienced kid, I was shaky, nervous, and all that stuff. I didn't even know how to connect to other people. I was so shy and so I guess you could say abnormal in a sense. I couldn't even have eye contact with another person without shaking, because it was, to me, interaction with another human was frightening. It was scary. It was like, I can't do this. So every day was a challenge just to go in. So a few days into the work, maybe the manager had noticed that I was not looking very good. It was getting worse day to day. I was getting a lot more, because here I am pulling off 8-hour shifts, and there's no shower. And by the time I get off work, the shelter was actually, they would close the doors, so you had a time that you had to go in, and I believe it was like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. You had to check back in. But anyways, the guy came up to me randomly after a few days of working there, and he gives me an envelope, and he says, he's like, here's your first 2 weeks check in advance. Get yourself a hotel room for you and your brother, and just don't disappear. And I was like, my goodness, I got this chance now. I get to get a hotel room. And I did. I went in and got a hotel room for me and my bro. And we ended up doing like a weekly stay at the hotel. So it was like the most normal that we had felt in a long period of time. And it was like the rest was pretty much history. Eventually, my parents were back in the picture. They came in, and I had to grow up quick within that short period of time. And basically it basically inspired me. I said, I got this fire in me. I got to keep going. I got to keep going. Otherwise, I could have died. Being a 17-year-old kid on the streets, like, you think, okay, there's anything could happen. Like, me and my brother, we weren't experienced in anything. So you think about it, like, we'd have, women coming up to us that were, also homeless, but they were selling their ass on the street. And like, we would get offers left and right. Me and my brother would play it straight. Like, no, we're good, because we were scared of everything, man. We were frightened kids. Definitely not what you imagine of what you see in Richie Slade from last year.
Yeah, man,
That's for
it's
sure. Old
really
80s man.
it's really like inspiring to hear this, dude. Like, I didn't know this about you, and it's one of those things, like I said, like, life has ways of forging you, right? It gives you these challenges to become that person that you want to be, that version of you. And but like, some of these challenges are hard, man. I've been through my own shit, and it's own, like, self discovery through hardship and challenges. And to hear this about you, man, it really just gives me a new level of respect. I already respected you immensely, but like, just to hear your life experience and the things you had to go through, and like, I resonate with the shyness, right? Like, one of the things I loved about wrestling was it was challenged me to overcome these things about myself. I had
Yeah.
to get in front of a bunch of people and in my speedos, right, and just be vulnerable and like do a performance and like and speak in front of people. It was just like, it had challenged me to come get beyond my fears,
Yeah.
so anyway, go on, man. Like, this is
Well,
all
no,
really inspiring
you're
stuff.
saying you're saying exactly what I mean. It is challenging. It's one of those things that people don't really understand. We're all humans. We all go through the same thing, some more than others. Some are lucky that they have a roof over their head, get to go through school, but then some have their challenges even there, you know what I mean, of making friends. That the beauty of today, though. Here's the thing. So all my travels in life of moving from one state to another, I think the most normalcy that I felt when I was when I was a kid was at the age of 10 for about 6 months when I lived in Canada, and then the age of 12 when I lived in Detroit for about, I think, about 8 or 9 months. And those were the only times. And when I was 12, I actually went to school. So I was going through, and the way I did this, my dad, he passed away about 12 years ago. God rest his soul. Like me and him never really got along until the last few years of his life, and he definitely made up. He was a good dad, and I kind of fully understood at that point what decisions, why my father did the things he did, why did he move, why did he make all those sacrifices, even if at sometimes it felt like it was at the cost of normalcy between me and my brother, of having a good life or being stable at school. But I understand a little better. Um, but yeah, there's these two periods of my life I remember looking back on and being, wow, like that's what I remember it being like whenever I watched the movie, where it was like kids in the school, you have the locker rooms, and all the buddies coming by, you got the girl you got a crush on, and all that stuff that I fantasized about, and I was finally getting a little taste of it when I was 12 years old, and I was lucky because the kids in the neighborhood, I ended up making a bunch of them, and they happened to be all wrestling fans. And this is, of course, during the era of Kane's big, you know, uh,
Yeah.
the his debut, and
As the
Shawn
brother.
Michaels Hell in
Yeah.
a Cell. Yeah,
Oh
this is
man.
all
Yeah.
during that
Right
time.
before the Attitude Era popped, right? Like,
Man, yeah, and I was going to like, that was the thing. That's the beautiful thing is my mom. She was so supportive of my dream of being a wrestler. So anytime she got a chance, she would actually buy me tickets. So it would be funny because any state that we'd end up going to just so happens to be there's WWF, who's they're running a show nearby. And my mom's like, kid, do you want to go? And me and my brother would be like, yes. So that was our obsession. That was the thing. And I think she kind of knew it too. It's the thing that kept us sane, kept us normal, kept us, at least preoccupied instead of worrying about the problems of the real world that they were going through. And it was our escape from reality, pretty much.
yes, I was
And
about to. You took the words right out of my mouth, man. That's
yeah,
what we're trying to provide for people when we're performing is like escape from that everyday life. They come to us to kind of get
absolutely,
to get that relief from the daily like grind and the monotony of
absolutely.
life. And like are able to provide this like little silly performance that I mean, we love to do it. It's like it's something that touches our soul to be able to do that for people. Give them that escape.
Absolutely, man. And it's funny because the internet nowadays, like, it's a beautiful thing. It's got its bad sides, but it's got its good things too. Where I don't think at any other era, any other time, would we ever be able to reconnect with people that we lost when we were kids. And I, over the past 10 years, have had friends that I didn't even think even remembered me and my brother find me on Facebook or Instagram and say, "Hey, are you that kid that lived in so and so in Detroit?" And just one day you guys vanished. We went knocking on the apartment complex, and the door just swung open, and it was just leftover furniture and whatnot. It looked like you guys were in a cartel or something. What's going on?
You just vanished it.
Yeah, and that was the story of our life. Like we would just pick up and go like nothing. And I guess that kind of taught me also to live lightly. So I don't keep a lot of furniture. So speaking of furniture, I'm actually in the process of moving right now. So next month I'm moving into a new place, and I didn't have to pack much because I pack lightly.
Bro,
So
I'm
I don't
I'm
know.
kind of I'm a minimalist at this point. Like I've got I got my bed and I got a few boxes and my clothes, but literally like
Yep.
I could pick up and fucking leave like that,
That's it, man. Like
And
I got my collectibles and the things that I like, and that's it, man. Furniture, whatever, toss it. I don't care.
and that lifestyle you were living, it probably taught you the ability to release, right? Which is really hard for a lot of people to just be able to let go of things, right? To let go of people or let go of
A hundred
situations
percent.
or let go of like material. So you're not tied down to those things that keep people like bogged into this reality of like, oh, this is my life and I can't change. It makes it you're more flexible to the flows of life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. At first it actually it actually traumatized me. So the beginning stages of, like in my early 20s, relationships that I finally got into, it wasn't very good. I had insecurities. I thought I was going to lose them, so I was clinging on for dear life, and it ended up being something compulsive, where you see people that are very controlling, and I ended up being that way. And I realized I correlated that to me not being able to hang on to anything in my life. When I finally got it, I was like, it's mine, it's mine, I'm not letting it go. And then
My precious,
yes, it's ours now. But yeah, I realized that was affecting me in that way, and I needed to break free from it. And it was realizing that and realizing where it came from, where the issues came from. Yes, it taught me to, when it came to material things, don't nothing. But when it came to the heart, on the other hand, being very protective. I've always been protective of my brother, my mom, my father. And it was always us, a little small group. And so it made me very uh, um, yeah, I don't know any other words to say, but protective. I was very controlling. I wanted everybody nearby. I had to keep an eye on them. And especially after my dad's passing, like I'm even worse now, I guess, in a sense of my family, being really tight with them. Um, because that's all you got at the end of the day. But I've been able to release a little bit, because I've learned from relationships is not to be that way, not to be that controlling, to let people breathe, let people move on. So it was a long road, man. It's not easy. It's not an
Mm,
easy. It's not something that you could just write a script for and say, let me follow it from one point to the next, and it's gonna work. It's not for everybody. Everybody's gonna have their own demons. Everybody's gonna take their own experience out of something. But as long as you figure it out at the end before it's too late, you're all right. You know what I mean? You're going to be okay. And
absolutely.
thankfully, I pride myself. I think I'm in an okay. You know, I do feel like I'm making up for a lot of lost time, and that's also part of my sanity in my brain, or insanity, I guess you could call it. It's
I don't want to interrupt you, but we're about to run out of
yes,
time. We're going to be right back with part two.
gotcha.
Yes, sorry, brother.
Not
And we are back with more from Richie Slade. Now, Richie, we left off talking about your experience with homelessness, and your just having to grow up really fast, with your being the big brother, and kind of having to play dad at a point where you had to learn how to be an adult on the fly. So it's a really inspiring story, and that I hope can inspire others, that like it's as low as you can get in life, there's always a bounce back. You're not stuck there forever. Like you can get out of these situations and that life presents, and actually make something positive out of it. So it's really a pleasure and I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that with us, because not a lot of people know that about you. Um, so before we get back to your story, there's something I like to do with my guests. I created a tarot deck, alchemistic tarot deck, and with my sacred geometry artwork. And so I want to get a card pull for you and see what the message is for you from the universe about a burning question that you have. So let me connect to your energy a little bit, and kind of just keep this question in mind of what you want to, whether it be a something in love, something in work, just general life. What's the question that you want this card to kind of provide you some clarity on? All right, let's do.
hmm.
Oh, that was quick. So we got actually two cards.
Wow.
Two cards for Richie. All right, we got the Two of Wands and the Seven of Cups. So I like to use this one specific, basically describes the meaning of the cards. So I'm going to look it up for you. What was the nature of the question?
You know what? It was, will when I die, will will I leave this world with a good thought about me?
Oh, that's
As
deep.
silly as that may, I feel like that matters more than anything else. Is what you do in life. Is that what does how do you leave this world?
You want to leave it a better place than you found it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is like, what's my lasting impact on the
Absolutely.
okay. So for the Two of Wands, we've got future planning, progress, decisions, discovery. And with the Seven of Cups, we have opportunities, choices, wishful thinking. I don't know if that provides you too much clarity on it, but the way I would look into it is, um, with future planning, progress, decisions, discovery, I feel like you've already discovered that version of yourself that is going to leave that legacy. I think that you're in the place that life has you're in the right place to leave the type of impact that you desire. And I think ultimately with the challenge of life is to stay true to the self and to leave that to inspire others to be their authentic version of themselves. And I feel like what the cards are trying to tell you is that you're in the right place. And I think this goes back to what you told me in the first part is you wanted to be an actor and you didn't have the guts, right? But I think we're both kind of around the same age, right? Where we're at this point in life where we're like, all right, I got this vision and I see it so strongly, and I just want to pursue that with as much vigor and enthusiasm as my younger self would want from me, right? And I feel like as long as you believe in yourself, Richie, and I think that you're an extremely talented human being and that you have a lot of things going for you. And my advice to you would just be stay the course and you will leave the impact that you desire because you are an inspiring human being. You have an inspiring story that others can kind of look at and be like, all right, well, if he could get out of that situation, then I can get out of my situation. So that's my wisdom to impart
Thank you.
upon you from the cards.
I really appreciate that because at the end of the day, I do think of it this way too: is that if I were to somehow parallel, somehow meet that 10, that 12-year-old self, would he be proud of me? Would he say, "Wow, you did everything I wanted I wanted to do," and I didn't leave any stone unturned. I did everything. I did my best, and it's continuing that continuing that forward. It's trying to. I think that's important to me too. It's continue with inspiring as many other people to be the same way. So look at your try to stay young at heart. Try to remember. Somebody told me this the other day. Actually, somebody asked. They said they got a peek in my face and they said, "Oh wow, like you look young." I said, the trick. I think the trick is when you have a young heart and you stay young in the soul and you stay connected to the things that you enjoyed when you were a kid, whether it's collecting figures, whether it's certain things, you'll never. Um, I feel like that somehow reflects on you. You see it. You will see it in your face. You see it in your energy, in your whole entire body. When you start to forget those things, and you start to say, "Ah, time to go to the real world and deal with this and that," and next thing you know is you're going to start looking that way. You're going to let the world beat you down because the world is tough, but you got to keep those little connections to your youth. Those connections is what's going to keep you alive. It's going to keep you going forward. It's remembering the if you're lucky enough to have photos of yourself when you were a child, which I barely have any left. I only have a few, which I've shared actually on Instagram here and there. I sometimes I will look at that kid in me, and I'll pretend that person is right in front of me, and I see the shine in their eyes. I see the innocence, and I say, I want to make that person proud. I want to make that person proud. I'm going to make my family proud. When my dad passed away, he passed away at the very beginning of Yeah, he didn't. He saw me perform in the ring, but it wasn't anywhere near as to what I've done and or accomplished in the last 5 years, even. He's, again, making people proud. It's leaving that legacy behind. It's, and I have a daughter as well, so and that's something I don't mention a lot in the wrestling world because it could be an unsafe place at times, like, uh, and I'm a very protective dad, and she was one of the primary reasons going all the way back to when I was in my early 20s, and I brought her into the world. Things didn't go right between me and her mother, and I ended up, it was one of those things where it was really difficult because we ended up going to court and having. Can you, sir? You got me right. I was
Yeah, yeah, I
disconnecting
got
there
you.
for a minute.
I still got you.
Perfect. We were going through court, and I had the fear of losing something that I brought into this world and that I cherish so much. It's like there was so much to lose, and I survived so much from being homeless, and I was caught in a moment where I'm thinking to myself is, am I going to lose her? Is this it? And I fought for her, and when she was about 5 or 6 years old, she was watching television, and it was WWE Raw was on TV, and she said, "Dad, I want to see you there." And I think the reason why it came up was because she had seen old footage of me wrestling in the backyard with some of the friends in Detroit, for example. And I used to take a little camcorder out and I would record the little matches that I would have with them. And I think she kind of correlated the two and says, "I want to see you there," and seeing all the crowd around the ring and whatnot. And that was before I even thought about entering a wrestling ring, because at that point it was like, I thought that time had passed. Like, okay, I got a kid now, I got to do this, and now I got more to worry about because I had to worry about whether I was going to lose her. And I said to myself, I said, if I do end up losing her, I don't care. And it kind of made full circle a couple of years ago, actually. Um, I said, if I happen to lose my daughter, whatever happens, and I don't get to see her again, I want to make sure that I'm going to be on television. So that way, when she turns on the TV, she will not be able to get away from me. No matter what happens, she's going to turn on the television. Doesn't matter if she's in another state or another country, she's going to see me. She's going to see my legacy. She's going to see what I've left. And again, it goes full circle to that, because even a couple of years ago, I was uh, debuting with Flex McCallion as Beef Candy, and we were cutting a promo hyping up the next event on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And it just so happens it was one of their local channels over in. She was actually out of state at the time. She was visiting her mother. She was in Montana. She calls me up at night. She said she's freaking out. She's like, Dad, guess what? And I'm like, what? She's like, I'm watching you on television right now. You're on TV. And that was like the best thing that I had. I've done WWE Raw. I did, I did the 205 with Kendrick, and guy, I love him to death. I've
That's my guy,
done
dude. That's
yeah,
my guy. That's one of my brothers in this business.
I had to throw that in there, man, because he
Yeah,
is he is, I won't go further into it, but he's one of the good ones, believe it or not. For he's the certain things, like I remember, and I'll go back to that one. I got so many things here.
yeah,
Kendrick went to bat for me and Bravo when it came down to our match on 205 Live. He was really trying to make sure that we were able to showcase what we were capable of doing, and he kept pushing for it. And it was one of the agents that actually came to us, and I remember the guy telling him, "I see what you're trying to do here, man. But the big heads, they're not gonna want that. So you need to cut some of that down." And it was because he was given so much shine for me and Freddie Bravo. It was, Fidel Bravo. It was incredible. And even though, like, we had to do it the way they wanted it to, just seeing that effort put behind, where he was just selfless, where he was willing to get us over on TV. Here's, a bunch of nobodies on on 205 Live. They're building up their own talent, and he was willing to go to bat for us. It speaks volumes. That speaks volumes. That's where I personal experience, that says a lot to me. So I got nothing bad to say about him. He's one of the good people in the world. Um, and yeah, but going back, like I performed on. I've been so fortunate. Again, it goes back to me being homeless, not having anything, thinking nothing was going to happen. And yeah, I've been able to perform on WWE, being on television. I got to get tossed out of the ring by Brock Lesnar. I got to be on, AEW. I've done the things that I thought I would never do. And if I had just given up and just thrown the towel, and to think none of this would have happened. And one of the driving forces behind all of that was when my daughter actually said, in addition to everything I went through in my life, she said, Dad, I want to see you there. And I thought, you know what? If I have a chance of losing you, you will not be able to escape me, because at least you could turn on the television and you're going to see your dad. You will not escape me. And, she happened to see me on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And it was the biggest highlight. And that was actually during, I believe that was during COVID, actually. That was during the COVID, you know, 2001, was it 2000? It's a blur, man. All that's a blur to me.
Oh,
But
dude, you're telling me,
um,
bro. I think we're still kind of in the haze of that whole era of
yeah,
COVID. Like,
yeah,
but yeah, that whole time period is kind of like, I think collectively as society, we've kind of tried to forget about it. So it's like, so now it's just like this blurry fucking like
yeah,
time period where it's like I can't really quite place things, but like that just hearing you say that, man, it's like it kind of tripping me out, like how like parallel our experience with life. I don't have a kid, but like my own experience with wrestling is like I always wanted to be on that big stage, right? I always felt like I was made for that big stage, and like I got to have a match on SmackDown, and it was like I was looking around, and like it was like when you're achieving a dream, right? It's like very surreal. It's just like
absolutely. Yeah.
you're looking around at all the crowd, and then obviously there's TV cameras that you got to be wary of, and but just to be able to be in that moment of realization of a dream, and
Mm.
then like 2 weeks later I got really injured really bad against Camden in San Diego. I took a tombstone where like my head just basically
Oof. Yeah.
compressed my spine, and I was 34 at the time, and I was looking at my life, and because I had that experience on SmackDown of like this dream realized, when I got hurt, it was kind of like, I think I'm good, right? Like I think I achieved this thing. And I got to have that moment, and when I got hurt, I was like, maybe this is good enough. Now I'm at
Right.
41, and I'm like trying to get back into it because I feel like I've never been in a better place mentally, physically. Like my body looks great. I'm doing all these crazy things in the ring. So like I'm trying to like kind of get back in there, but like I kind of understand like where you're coming from, where like you have that moment on the big stage, and it's just like, this is what I've always wanted, right? And to be able to
Yeah.
give that to your daughter, right? To be able to give that moment of like fulfillment to her, of like getting to see you on TV with Championship Wrestling, with the WWE stuff. There's nothing better, right? It's just like it feels like it's like a release within your soul of like, I did it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And it's one to, again, I mean, a year into training, I actually ended up suffering a major incident with my neck, where I ended up getting a double underhook DDT. The guy didn't let go. He claimed that he had been wrestling for 5 years, and of course, when you're a guy who's only been training for about 7 or 8 months, or yeah, 7 or 8 months. No, yeah, I didn't even. You know what? It wasn't even a year in. It wasn't even 2 years. It was 7 or 8 months into training. I got hurt. And yeah, he dropped me on my head, and I questioned everything at that point. I said, "Oh, okay, maybe this ain't for me." I never hit the gym prior to that. That was the worst. Training was the worst. I didn't like working out. I didn't have any of that kind of experience prior, so I didn't know what I was getting involved in. And so many times I was like, I just got to quit. I just got to hang it up. Stop here. Stop now. What am I doing? I'm crazy. I could be paralyzed. And these are all facts. These are all potential outcomes, of diving into this universe, into this realm of wrestling. And maybe that's why I'm crazy. Maybe that's part of my insanity, is that I cannot stop. I won't stop. I got the bulging disc in my neck, and I went to physical therapy and I continued training, but it also taught me a lesson on how to wrestle safe, how
Mm.
to be a bit better, smarter performer in the ring. Where yeah, we're in there to win it, but we're not trying to kill the guy either. You know what I mean? You don't want to send the guy sipping through a straw, paralyzed either. This is all a performance. It's all an art. It's all part of that beautiful painting that you're trying to demonstrate to the crowd, and everything, the ins and outs. It's all part of the same thing. And yeah, man, wrestling is beautiful. Wrestling is beautiful. It's definitely not looked at uh, by a lot of people in a serious way when you tell them, "Hey, I'm a professional wrestler, I'm a performer," but that's because they don't understand it. It's almost like telling someone you're an artist. They could sit there and say, "Oh, wow, why aren't you making big money off of it?" And one of the things I realize is, yeah, it's admired, but it's not valued when it comes to
Yeah.
art. Unless
Oh,
you
that
have something to sell.
especially this day and age where AI is kind of taking over the arts. It's like
Absolutely.
there is no at this point, like I do sacred geometry stuff, right? Which is basically like circles interlocking, as much as circles, a lot of
Mm,
geometric patterns and stuff like that. And like you go online and you look at sacred geometry, and there's all these like AI generated images, right? It's just like it's like they're cool to look at, but there's like no soul behind it. It's like this art, and the arts aren't really
yeah.
appreciated or valued. And
Mm,
we're in this time where I think artists need to kind of stand up for their medium and really be like, we need to save this. This is like a part of humanity that needs to be cherished and preserved because we are at the risk of losing that part of our humanity to the machine, to the technology, right? Like you see it with screenplays in Hollywood. You see it with, voiceover actors. My friend's a voiceover actor, and
yeah.
they can like basically take your voice, like different clips of your voice, and then the AI can generate shit for
Yep.
so it's like we're getting to this period, and I've talked about this before in the podcast of like we're in this like shift of humanity, right? Like you and I have grown up in this time of like exponential technology, right? Where we went
Yeah.
from literally like floppy disk computers to like you can keep a whole fucking thing in a USB drive, right? It's like
Right. Right.
so like the technology has been like this, and we're still, I think, adjusting as humanity because it's like it's increased so much that we're just getting hit with this like Terminator shit, where like we're getting to this point where the technology can become so overwhelmingly consuming and can really just it's going to take over jobs. It's going to get rid of these different things that we hold dear as humans, and so we have to make this choice. We have to make this choice, not to get sidetracked from everything else, but we have to make this choice of like how much are we going to let this technology kind of run us? Are we going to run the technology, or the technology going to run us?
Absolutely.
We have to find the balance, because I feel like technology is great and it has the potential to kind of set us free from the things, the kind of economic system that the Industrial Revolution created, right? The Industrial Revolution, like we've only been doing this like really structured life of 9 to 5 for a little over 100 years because of like mass production, industrial revolution. It's created this society, like kind of machine society, right?
Mm,
So technology has the ability to free us from that and kind of get us to this artistic like renaissance where like we can pursue these human pursuits, and like because the machines can do so much for us, or we have this future where the machines literally just take over every aspect and run society. So we're in this point in humanity where we have to make a choice of what is technology going to do for us? Is it going to
mm,
set us free, or is it going to further enslave us? It's like
yeah.
the whole Matrix narrative is really
Mm,
where we're at. The Matrix, the Terminator. We've had all these artistic stories told and through film and books and different aspects of media where like these people have kind of foreseen the rise of technology. These artists that have written down these stories, like the warnings of like the Big Brother shit, like of 1984,
yeah.
so now we're really faced with those choices that these artists kind of foresaw coming. The Brave New World with Aldous Huxley, that whole world that he
Yeah.
envisioned of like. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but like in the book, it's a society basically run by technology. Like everything's run by technology. Like the
Mm,
procreation, kind of like Demolition Man, right? Like procreation is
yeah.
run by the state. Like everybody's made in a test tube. Like
Mm,
everybody's in like nobody, like we've lost the ability to procreate because the machines have taken over. Like it's
right.
are we really going to go down this, oh, I'm going to upload my consciousness and live forever? You know, it's ugh. I think we're kind of going
Yeah,
down a different
there's
narrative
a
here, but like that's kind of where we're at, right? Like,
there's a limit. I feel like just like anything, you have foods out there, people with diets. You can overdo something, and it could end up being a bad thing. There's a limit to everything. There's a positive, but if you overdo it, of course it's not going to be good. I feel like, yeah, sure, accessibility becomes a lot easier. Like, it's I'll take for example someone like myself who writes. I try to dabble in everything. So write, direct, cinematography, you name it, I do it all. But then there's certain aspects of certain things that you're not good at, and you need that assistance, you need that help, and you go and you reach out. And not a lot of people may not be the guy for or girl for it, like they may not have the tools for it. And of course that's when AI becomes, oh, okay, well then now I could do this myself. I don't have to have 100 people working for me because I'm a, I'm one that's budgeting it with myself. I got a little bit of money and I can't afford getting all these. So maybe perhaps it could benefit that person, but I don't, again, that's something that could easily slide into corporate greed too, where you have a company that has plenty of money, and instead of hiring the right guys for it, they end up terminating a buttload of guys and then using AI to do the rest of the work. That's when it becomes an issue. um so I see a flip side on everything. But again, it's whose hands is it in, and how are they using it? You know what I mean? It all comes down to that. um and it's funny because you were talking about like the day and age of us growing up. I was bringing up to somebody else. I said about how our systems, are certain places, where you work, sometimes the system may be lagging, but it's never to the point of what we experienced back in the day. And I try to make a joke about it, saying, I said, I think we're working with dial-up at the moment. And they just kind of looked at me like, ha. And I could tell it just went over their head. And I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, I got the AOL disc. I got the Earthlink disc, and I'm popping it in right. I could hear it right now in the back. I hear the buzzing noise of it trying to connect. And of course, the person is looking at me like right over their head. I'm like, all right, never mind. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop
like,
with
oh,
this.
that's too soon or early for you. You don't remember that era, the pre 9/11 era.
Yeah, man. I had a desktop. I had a desktop, huge desktop with an old monitor, funky monitor that I got from a thrift store. And at the tail end of being homeless, I used to drag around this desktop. Now we have the convenience of laptops. I mean, they had laptops back then, but it cost a lot more. And of course, me being homeless and poor, not really having much, I ended up getting one at a thrift store that was like for $20. It was, looking back, it was trash. The thing was like a Windows 98, and I just put that thing in there and try to hook it up to the hotel's telephone line. And back then, if you're using something, you're going on the internet, you're jamming the entire network. Like, I would have the manager from the hotel come back, say, knock on the door, says, hey, what are you guys doing in there? Like, the line's been busy this whole time. Are you guys using the internet? Like, because of course you can't make any phone calls going in and out. They're like, no, you can't have that here. Oh man, the convenience right now of having Wi-Fi. It didn't exist back in the day.
Oh man, the kids don't know. The kids do not
No.
know what we dealt with. Like in the early years of computers, like as they were progressing, the things that the kinks and the bugs that had to get worked out in these systems, it was like we had to deal with it all. And like you said, there was a dial-up, which, like
Yeah, yeah,
the whole fucking
yeah.
thing. And trying to look at internet pictures on the internet, and it would come out in like strips, right? When you looked at a
Right.
picture, it would slowly like reveal itself because the
Yeah,
because the download speeds were just so fucking
yeah.
slow. And now like literally we have a fucking supercomputer in our pocket that has all human knowledge at our
We're
fingertips
taking it with us
at, at,
everywhere,
at
man.
every moment. It's collecting all this data from us that we don't know it's doing. It's doing all this shit that we don't know, but like it literally is like this amazing miracle that
Yeah.
we have now that we we didn't grow up with that shit, and a lot of the kids don't
No.
have all grown up with it. And I think it's going to be interesting to see in the next 20 years, as these kids get into the adulthood, into the workplace, and start to take over society from the old guard. like how society's going to shift, but based on like these kids, their life experience has been nothing but having a screen in front of them at all times, you know, and
Yeah.
you kind of encounter it with these kids is like they don't know how to really interact as much, right? They don't have the social skills that we were forced to develop because we had
Right.
to communicate human to human, you know, that
Yeah.
they are just told, and they're great with it, right? Like it's like the seamless thing for them. Like I've been
Yeah.
able to the one of the benefits of growing up with technology is I've been able to adapt it, right?
Right.
I've been able to adapt to it as it grows. But I like to look at like my grandparents who are like a generation, two generations behind me, and they're completely lost in the world because
Yeah.
they didn't grow with the technology, and now they're just all they do is just watch TV because they don't know how to work a computer. Like it's just like
Right.
fucking foreign language to them, you know.
Yeah.
But to see these kids that now, you know, when they're 3 years old, they're given an iPhone or something or an iPad, and so like it's just like I
Yeah.
said, man,
Expectation is, yeah.
it's that
Expectations are
choice.
going up. That's,
Oh yeah, and it's that choice that we've got to kind of make as society and come into to balance with it, like because it has kind of encroached upon us, right? And like we're in this like pivotal shift in humanity where we have to decide like how much are we going to let this technology really be a part of our daily lives, you know, and it's already ingrained in everything. It's like you can't do anything without a computer, you can't do anything without a phone.
yeah.
So how far are we going to let it go? So it's like I feel like guys like us who have kind of seen it progress and have those experience of life before it, you know, like I look at the 90s as like the golden age of humanity, right? Like
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Absolutely.
like because we had best of both worlds. Like we had the technology, but it wasn't so overwhelmingly encroaching that it was like controlling our daily lives. And we could
Right.
cut, and we still had that era where we can get on our bikes and go play at the park. And you know, like kids nowadays, it's all about the screens. It's all about the video.
Yeah.
And so we've
Absolutely.
we've kind of lost this thing of like kids grow up so fast now because technology is so like readily available.
Yeah.
They kind of get to this point where they weren't allowed to be kids, you know, and they didn't get to experience the things we experienced of like playing with the kids in the park or whatever, you
Right.
know. So it's a really interesting time to be alive, to say the least.
It
And
really is. I think we're in a transition period of going into something else. I'm not sure. It's scary, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a scary, it's a scary world that we already live in right now. As literally right now, it's a scary world. But I don't know. I don't know. I think we're in for darker times, to be honest with you. But that's a different story for another time. Um, but yeah, man, it's
I try
just,
to be optimistic. I'm kind of in the
yeah.
same boat where it's like I see us kind of getting overwhelmed, right? There's this storm coming for us, and that's why I say
Mm,
we have to make this choice. We're going to be faced with this choice of like, and we kind of saw it during COVID, right, where the government started running out these like draconian technologies, like trying to
right.
get you to get a COVID pass, and you got to get a
Yeah.
vaccine. You got to get a vaccine to go to this concert, and it was kind of like this. I mean, I've kind of been a conspiracy guy since 9/11, anyway, like looking into all the
Right.
things that are really going on behind the scenes and kind of trying to pick behind the curtain and see what are they really doing
Hmm.
behind this illusion of society that we're given. What are they doing back
Yep.
there, you know?
Yep.
And so COVID kind of gave us like a snapshot of like this is what they want to do with the future. Like they're going to make it so that you cannot exist without a technology. And then if you really want to get like deep into the rabbit holes of like prophecies and stuff, the mark of the beast, and you look at like
Right.
the microchip technology that they have,
Oh yeah.
and the stuff they started trying to do with the COVID pass seemed like kind of a precursor to this you got to scan your chip to get into this place type of thing. You know, that's the stuff that I'm
Yeah.
really wary of, is like that's
Yeah. I
the
mean,
dark stuff that you're kind of alluding to
yeah.
is like it can really take over in a really scary way.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't help but to look at certain parallels with things and things I've been warned about. I used to get told by my grandmother about, and I'm looking at it like, wow, okay, so it's actually happening. That's crazy, and I don't know, man. Again, that's a whole topic that I could get into as well. With life is a big circle. Our beginning is our end, and our end is our beginning, and it's just going to keep cycling over and over until somebody breaks that chain. That's it.
Absolutely, dude. That's what we're in. with sacred geometry, it's kind of like opened me up to what this really is, what this reality really is,
Mm,
because you're dealing with the structure of the universe in a lot of ways. Like, if you look at like the different esoteric implications of sacred geometry and what it's like really, these symbols and these different things of how reality is really like a video game, right? And
yeah.
all of our technology is a reflection of this biosystem that we are in, and it's circles going in circles. If you look out at the cosmos, right, it's a bunch of circles going in circles.
Yeah.
Like we're a big circle. We're in this big circle, this sphere going
Hmm.
around, circling around another sphere, and we have a sphere circling us, and then there's all these other spheres out there
Yeah.
circling. So it's all circles. Everything is circles, right? It cycles. Everything circles and cycles. And this is one of the things with like the progression of the zodiac and like the going to the age of Aquarius
Mm,
and like you look at the Mayan calendar and like the Mayan calendar was all cyclical, right? And people thought in 2012, oh, the Mayan calendar ended. And it was like, no,
right.
it's a cycle. It was the end of a cycle. Like we're in this cycle,
Right.
right? As humanity. And I feel like I really resonate with like the Matrix trilogy. And like and in the third one, right? It's the Neo comes face to face with the architect. The architect's like, yeah, this is the sixth version of you. You know, we've done this before, you know, and
Yep.
I feel like we're kind of in that thing where we're in this cycles like and
I'm with you on that, man. I
like
agree.
yeah so like personally I feel like I incarnated at this time, and I feel like it's the same with a lot of people feel the same way as like
Yep.
we're in this period of shift, and I recognize it, and I have this screaming urge within me to kind of bring people to consciousness of what's happening in humanity, what's happening in this reality. And 9/11 kind of clicked me into that because I was 18 at the time. I was just becoming an
Hmm.
adult, and it was like my time. I saw beyond the illusion, right? It was like I was given a peek of like, wait a minute, this isn't what's really happening. And so it got me into these rabbit holes of what is really happening and searching these ancient cultures and all these ancient cultures all have this different piece of the truth, right? I feel like the Tower of Babel was like the confusion of the languages. And I feel like in a lot of ways that also was the fracturing of knowledge, and all these different
Mm,
cultures had this knowledge. And you look at stuff like the Mayans or the Sumerians, and they're all alluding to this time, like in Indian culture, it's the Kali Yuga, and in the Bible, it's the apocalypse. And a lot of Christians think, oh, it's the end of the world, and it's like, no, it's not the end of the world; it's the end of a world, right? It's the end of
right.
a period of the world, and the world is going to keep going. And if you really look into the Bible story, like the Revelations isn't the end; it's the beginning of the age of Christ, which is 1,000 year reign, and then the devil comes back again, and it's like they don't they think that it's just going to end and everything's going to be oh heaven on earth, and no, it's like it's alluding to a cycle change, right? And all these
Right.
different cultures are pointing to this same change, right? They're all pointing to it in a different way. And it's just about bearing all this knowledge together and just like letting people know, like, okay, this is where we're at. Don't be afraid of it.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid. And I think fear is like the biggest enemy, like, because I feel like in this reality, the only thing that really exists is love. That's the energy. And but like fear is this dark shadow that's kind of the polarity of love that
Right.
we're kind of in this dichotomy of this thing between fear and love. And like I think society wants us to fear, but like if we can get people of awakening to this change that's a coming, this that the cycle, it's not going to be the end. It's just this cycle, and we have to just get in line with the cycle and just flow with it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a long tangent. We're actually running out of
I,
time.
I
We're
I
running out
love it,
of time,
man.
brother.
This
I
is
think
what I'm talking
honestly,
about.
brother, I'm really tripping out at how parallel our lives are. Like we need to really like dive in deeper to this connection. Like I said, man, at our shows that we've been on, like I've always like felt like you're somebody that click. Like you always recognize people that are like, okay, this is a person, this is one of my people, right? Like this is a
Right. Right.
person that
Right.
I see eye to eye with. You see each other, right? It's like, okay, I see
I
this,
agree, man.
right?
I
So
agree.
I
I'd be more than happy to do it again too. We could dive further into the topics.
absolutely, bro.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I want to have you on again so we can kind of get deeper into this human stuff, like this
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
really happened, because I think we both see it. We both see it. We're both on the
Mhm.
same wavelength of pushing for our dreams because we realize that
Yeah.
we have to not only do it for ourselves but do it for others, to inspire others to
Right.
aspire to greater, to be our best potential, our highest potential. So let's end it there, brother. We will definitely do another episode because there's a lot more that we can dive into, and
Definitely.
I want to get you out of here on time to so you can go to
You
your
got it.
movie date. But we're gonna do this again, guys. It's been a great podcast. Richie, we're going to explore this a lot more. So I'm just going to wrap it up real quick. Richie, if you have any like relevant links or anything to get in touch with people, just send them to me. You'll find them down in the description. As always, the wardrobe is by Alchemystic Apparel, alchemisticapparel.com. You can find my t-shirts. And Richie, the best thing about talking to strangers is now that we're done with this episode, we are no longer strangers, brother.
Absolutely, man.
And we will explore much more in another episode. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.